Beautiful mornings, beautiful nights, amazing colors of the twilight. Memories whisper, memories sigh. You and I together before you said goodbye. Welcome to my country, but here you don't belong. Stay with me forever, stay as long as you want. So welcome to my country, but here you're bound to fall. Don't you hear me crying? Don't you hear my call?
And that was the wonderful Welcome to My Country by the Latvian band Brainstorm. Coincidentally, Welcome to My Country is what the Latvian delegation will be saying to their counterparts in the early hours of the 11th of May in Copenhagen. Sadly, in the meantime, we've got the 6 no-hopers to discuss. Gav, run the titles. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're listening to this. Welcome, bienvenue, willkommen, bienvenidos, welkommen, bienvenido, benvenuti, tervetuloa, and if you're from Croatia, sretan Božić. I know that actually means Merry Christmas, but it's the only Croatian phrase I know that doesn't involve seriously insulting your mother. Hello and welcome to the last Eurovision podcast of 2014 from ESCtips.com, where we'll be discussing this year's automatic qualifiers. You might remember our first guest from the first of our Eurovision 2014 podcasts. Last time he spoke to us live from California. This time it's just from his home in London. Please welcome Daniel Gould from Sofabet.com.
It's great to be back, Andy.
Thank you for making the time. Our next guest, he was only here last week, but already he's aged a year. No, he really has. He's a polyglot. He's a polymath. He's Polly Smitten Downs. No, he isn't. He is Tobias Larsson. Welcome, Tobias.
Well, thank you.
Don't worry, I'm not going to tell anybody that you actually turned Polmäkimete.
That's fine, you see, I'm fine with it. I'd like to point out, as always, experience, and that's what makes life worth living or something. Experience is great.
And also the fact that nobody really understands Finnish, so they wouldn't have understood that age, which I just
exactly.
gave in Finnish. Yes. And finally, generally I devote his introduction to a kind of character assassination in one sentence, but it's not fair. What you don't know is that last week, and indeed this week, his computer didn't actually manage to record his contributions, so he had to record them on his own, and he still made it sound perfect. So, as a tribute to that, I've decided to greet him with a friendly message in his native West Midlands. So, Gav, you right cock. Sorry, the accent's wrong. You right cock.
Thanks, Andy, though that may have been a tad too Wolverhampton than Walsall.
Okay, well, I've hardly ever been there. My comedy West Midlands accent is not really based on reality at all. Anyway, last week we finished off the semi-finals. So this week we discussed the big 6, which are France, Germany, Italy, Spain, the United Kingdom, and last year's winner, Denmark. This isn't the official running order. However, Denmark drew position number 23 in a highly secretive ballot last month. The remaining automatic qualifiers will draw their running order slot in the press conference following the rehearsals. Anyway, let's move on to the first song. France, they last won Eurovision in 1977. Some of us on this podcast weren't even alive, and I was only 2.5 years old, with Marie-Myriam and L'Oiseau et l'Enfant. They really are due another victory, but can Twin Twins' moustache cut it in Denmark?
une moustache. Maintenant je sais ce que je veux, c'est une moustache. Je pourrais tout laisser, tout donner pour une moustache. Je t'aime tout, c'est vrai, mais pas ce que je voulais. Je veux ci, je veux ça, y'en a jamais assez pour moi. C'est comme si, c'est comme ça, y'a toujours un truc que j'ai pas. Je veux ci, je veux ça, y'en a jamais assez pour moi. C'est comme si, c'est comme ça, y'a toujours un truc que j'ai pas. Moustache.
Gav, does a moustache suit you?
I can't say it would actually, Andy. I think these guys were the very best choice for Eurovision from the French national selection, but my main doubts involve their live vocals. The energy of Moustache is great, and I think it will be very well received in Copenhagen. In my original review on the site, I referred back to Jedward's Lipstick, as I think there are similar traits between the two acts. The choruses for both songs are very distinctive, and I think the French will use a similar package of vivid animations for Moustache. They experimented with some simple animations in Amsterdam, and I thought they were quite effective, so I'm expecting something much bolder for the Eurovision stage. In 2010, Jessie Matador finished 12th with an upbeat party song, but I find Twin Twin's song more likeable and it's potentially more accessible. In 2010, they got a fairly late draw too, so I'd say any kind of similar result is very much dependent on the draw. But it's a party song for a Saturday night crowd. I think the French song is underestimated.
Okay, Daniel, you generally sport a moustache or a moustache-beard combo. Did this make you want to shave it off?
I like it. It's a catchy number. Like Gav, though, the problem about it is delivering this kind of thing live, because it needs energy, and the more energy you put into it, the more the vocals suffer. It's worth looking back on Daily Motion on their performance on the French TV show, where their even though they were relatively static and there were three dancers with them, their vocals did kind of suffer. So it's going to be one to watch for at rehearsals to see how they kind of square that circle, to kind of have some energy, but to let the vocals sort of be respectable.
Tobias, do you like men with moustaches?
Sometimes, if they're nice and if they don't tickle too much. I think that when it comes to this song, yeah, I agree that it was by far the best choice out of the three songs. Then again, what a shame that a nation of pop like France can't find better songs to send to Eurovision. There is so much talent in that country, and the problem here is that it's too amateurish. It's not professional enough, and I think that's the big drawback here. Like in 2007, France sent to Helsinki L'amour à la française, which was a fun number, catchy.
I loved that song.
It seemed to have all the traits that this one has, and it just turned out to be a complete disaster live, because they didn't pay any attention to the visual point of view. They were just running around and they weren't performing for the cameras. And I think that has turned into a habit for France, because they've managed to ruin some really nice songs with really horrible staging and camera work. And like, for instance, Angun in Baku in 2012, who had a great little pop song, which they managed to rip to shreds completely. So until I see something really great from France, I will expect a nightmare of a performance that will, completely crush every chance this song might have. So I think, unfortunately, this is bottom. It's going to end up close to the bottom again, just because the French delegation doesn't take their job seriously. And yeah, I can't see this being particularly well performed in Copenhagen, unfortunately. I like the song.
I'll have to slightly disagree with you there, Tobias, in that, I think it'll be a lot more popular with televoters than with the juries. I know about the vocal weakness, but just the kind of party vibe. I see this 13th or 14th place, to be specific, i.e. I'm not sure if it's going to be bottom of the left-hand side or top of the right-hand side of the scoreboard, but I see that as its position. But yeah, I take on board what you say about the vocal weakness.
From my point of view, it's not even the vocals. It's, you can sing like an old goat and get away with it. But if it's not nicely produced, I'm speaking camera angles, things like that, if you don't have a story to tell, like Angun in 2012, which was a lot of things happening, but there was no red thread. There was nothing for the viewers to follow. And the camera work was so distant, so you never connected to the singer. Nobody warms to an entry if you feel that the performers are strangers or doing something, having their own little party on stage and you're not invited in. I think that really turns televoters off. And if they don't manage to get that one right, they will have a real problem with that.
So you don't think it'll do as well as Jessie Matador, for example, which Gav mentioned, which was something like 10th or something?
I thought that was a mess too, but it was a mess that worked. You connected with the singer, sort of.
Fair enough. Okay, now we move on from France to Germany. While everyone was hoping for a group of shanty rockers to sing about a fiddler on the deck in Denmark, it was the wildcard entry, Eliza, who snatched the ticket to Eurovision with Is It Right?
Is it right? Is it right? Or is it wrong? I can't go on. You can't go on. If you say yes or even no, you don't know how and where to go. Is it right or is it wrong? I can't go on. You can't go on.
Daniel, is it right?
It was right on the night of their national final because I enjoyed their success and the narrative they'd built up from that wild card round, and a format that sort of saw the different songs in between rounds and the crowd getting behind the underdog and then finally winning. It was great viewing. It's worth bearing in mind they failed to win every round until the super final. When they got the anti-Unheilig votes as well. They got like a protest vote. My view is that without that narrative on the Eurovision stage, I doubt it's going to have any impact. I mean, it's a pleasant enough song, but it doesn't have anything that marketeers would call a USP, which means a unique selling point. There's nothing that's going to make people pick up the phone for this out of the 26 songs and dial for this one. So much as I enjoyed their success and the song itself is fine, I can't see it having any impact.
I actually quite agree with you there. I was hopeful for something a bit different when I heard the accordion start, and I've actually written in my notes accordion klaxon, which obviously is the sign generally of a non-successful song, but at least it makes it slightly different. Tobias, what do you think?
Well, I thought it was a very unfortunate choice, I must say. I thought that the German final was quite confusing in the way it was selecting the song, and I sort of understood in advance what would happen, but I mean, the poor TV viewers who didn't, must have been a really confusing evening in front of the telly. I thought it was a very unfortunate choice. They had much better songs, but everyone swallowed this wild card narrative and voted for it in the end. And I don't see this song having a lot of things going for it, actually. If you don't have the backstory, and you won't have the time for a backstory with 26 entries, and besides, everyone has some sort of backstory, I don't see this one breaking through. I don't see this one being anyone's favorite. They can hope for some jury love, but I don't think the televoters will go for this, because I thought this one was messy as well. I didn't really understand what the German audience saw in it, to be really honest. It doesn't trigger anything in me. It just goes on for 3 minutes and then it's over and then I forgot it. So I would be very surprised if this one makes it higher than, say, 19th place something.
To be honest, I can only concord with you on that. Gav, what's your opinion?
I think I'm going to have to disagree with everyone here.
Ooh.
And I do agree that I think most people preferred Santiano's Fiddler on the Deck for Eurovision. I was certainly one of those. But I have gradually come to appreciate Elitsa's song, and I think it could do better than many people expect. And I think most people have written off this entry, but I find it quite catchy and somewhat quirky. Perhaps slightly in the Lena mould, but not quite as instant. It should be something the juries go for, as I think it has a chart-friendly and commercial sound. The accordion is a nice touch, which Tobias picked up on, and I think its use will also get a nod from the juries. Lead singer Ella, she works the cameras well, and that was noticeable at the German final. So I struggle to find as many negatives with the German entry as I have with so many others. I want to see the stage show and camera angles before committing to a certain outcome, but as I said, I think Germany is underrated. I think for musical quality, I think the juries have got an excuse to rank it slightly higher than others. And I see it doing battle with Italy, I really do. I think it could sit anywhere between 10th and 15th, and if they really hook it together on the night, it could do a little bit better.
Okay, fair enough. So now we move on from Germany to Italy, who have won the contest twice before, 1964 and 1990, and they also hold the record of having the worst Eurovision hosts ever in 1991, which was Giuliano Cinquetti and Toto Cutugno. Really, you need to watch the YouTube clips of that. They were really, really bad. Anyway, they used to select from their famous and prestigious Sanremo festival, but instead they broke from that tradition and they sent the multi-platinum selling singer Emma Marrone. Here she is with La Mia Città.
Dimmi se lo vuoi, dimmi che non sei soltanto un riflesso confuso che guardo sul fondo di noi. E corro avanti e torno indietro, scappo, voglio, prendo e tremo, stringo forte il tuo respiro e penso a me che non ho un freno, spingo forte.
Tobias, La Mia Città, that means my city. Is this a city that you recognise?
I recognize quite a few things here, to be honest. This has a sort of... I was really surprised to hear that Italy has selected a song like this, because this is a kind of rock song that's sort of Gyllene Tider-esque, which is a kind of sound that everyone in Sweden would like and enjoy and recognize. Gyllene Tider was the band that Per Gessle of Roxette was in his youth, and everyone knows them and loves them. So this sound surprised me from Italy, actually. I think Emma is great. I think that she's very expressive, very entertaining. She could be the death of Israel in a final. I think Israel is growing into a bit of a fan favorite, but I think that the juries would prefer Italy, actually, in the final. I think the song is good. I would have enjoyed a slightly stronger chorus. When I was listening to it the first times, I was sort of hoping for something that never quite materialized. But at the same time, it's very sort of rock with attitude by a female singer, and it stands out this year. So I think it will do very much what Italy has done lately. It will be one of the favorites. It will be performed in a sort of unorthodox way, means that the singer will ignore the camera angles and everything, and probably end up somewhere between 6th and 10th place. That's my guess. I wouldn't mind if it did better, but I think that's what it will do.
Well, to be honest, I'll give my opinion now, because I can only really agree with Tobias. I do like the fierceness. I do like Emma Marrone, her performance. And yeah, I found the chorus a bit bland. Didn't really fit in with the ferocity of the verses. But no, I like it. And I actually think left-hand side of the scoreboard, but I don't see it actually as a contender for the win. Gav, what do you think?
Well, it looks as if I'm disagreeing with everyone again, because initially I thought Emma Marrone might be a contender for Italy this year. Her voice is excellent, and she's effectively the Italian version of Pink. So I was very disappointed when I heard La Mia Città, and I still have a negative outlook for Italy this year. Looking at Emma's albums and picking out the likes of Amami, L'amore non mi basta, and the 2012 hits Cercavo Amore, all were platinum selling songs and far more suitable for Eurovision, in my opinion. I'm just staggered they failed to pick a stronger song with a much better chorus, as you both point out. But maybe that's Italy saying they don't want to win Eurovision, which has kind of been their attitude of late anyway. Italy have a fair bit of support, so I don't think there's any danger of last place or anything over 20th place. Emma charts very regularly in Switzerland, so I predict a decent level of points from them, in addition to France, Germany, Belgium and UK, where there are high populations of Italians, but also the likes of Spain and Albania. Last year, Marco Mengoni placed 7th with 126 points. Moldova finished 11th with 71 points. And I think that's the area Italy will be aiming for, 11th to 14th, floating maybe around 50 to 70 points. I don't know how the juries will mark Emma's ferocity and aggressive attitude, and it's certainly something that I'm particularly wary of, having watched Amandine Bourgeois for France last year. Okay, she got drawn first, but her fierce attitude was quite off-putting, and I think the same could be said for Italy. I think Emma's vocal has a tendency to go slightly off, and she does have a very energetic performance style, and I just don't think it's going to work.
Daniel, what do you think of aggressive women?
I like aggressive women. And I like
I'll note that down.
And I like Emma Moroni as well. I mean, following on from Gav, I can see his point that sort of 80s pop rocket Italian feels like it's a harder sell than a male ballad or a Amy Winehouse style retro song, which is why you can get 5-2 with Betfair at the moment that this will be in the top 10, which is, given that the quality of the performer and the fact that they have such a good record, 3 out of 3 top 10 appearances since their return, is quite a price. I kind of agree with the general feeling that the chorus is a bit of a letdown. It almost feels a bit like an album track rather than a single. But, you know, it carries along with a good clip, the song. I'm not feeling it'll be quite top 10, but at 5-2, I wouldn't be laying it at that price either.
We should possibly explain 5-2, that's in decimal odds 3.5, isn't it?
Indeed, yes.
Yes, just in case you're not used to the British way of presenting odds. Okay, we just crossed the Mediterranean now. Spain have won twice in fairly quick succession, in fact, but they haven't won since Franco was allowed to influence the result. This year they're entering a former UK X Factor finalist, Ruth Lorenzo. Just in case it escaped you, the song is called Dancing in the Rain. Here she is. Okay, I haven't gone first yet, so I'll go first and I'll just read out my notes. Plinky plunky piano, no, 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 dull, 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 losing will to live, and finally, cállese, which is the Spanish for be quiet. Gav, what do you think?
Every time I hear this song, I think of the Mecha Streisand from South Park. So I just imagine Ruth's head on this big metal Tyrannosaurus Rex body, breathing fire down on all of the Eurovision fans.
How do you sleep at night, Gav? Your dreams must be something quite special.
But they're very focused on Eurovision at the moment, that's for sure. I think someone should design a Mecha Lorenzo, actually, and send it in to us, and maybe we can do a prize.
Could do.
I think readers of ESCtips will know my feelings about the Spanish entry. It's an underdeveloped screamfest, and I think people that like the song do so out of loyalty for Ruth Lorenzo, or just go for Spanish songs in general. If the song was more understated and gradually built into an emotional climax, I think Spain might have a chance of matching Pastora's 10th place in 2012. At the moment, I think Spain is hovering between kind of 15th and 20th place. You look at Georgia last year, for instance. This is just very similar to me. It's a big shout fest, and I think there might be similar results on the cards. And if you compare it against some of the other higher quality ballads in this year's final, or should make this year's final, I think they will score much better with the juries and maybe connect better with the audience at home. Given Spain's lack of support anyway, I just think there are other countries lined up to take points away from them and will potentially do much better on the televote and jury score.
Okay, Daniel, does this get you dancing in the rain?
I don't mind it as much as you guys, partly because the final version was a substantial improvement on what we heard at the national final. The structural changes were a great improvement. There was a very shrewd switch from Spanish to English and finally back again. It's also been given enough of a contemporary veneer to kind of fool people a little bit as well. If Ruth is on form at the jury rehearsal, and she can occasionally lose control, so we'll only know this on the nights, then I think she's the natural successor to Nadine Byler in 2011, Pastora Soler in 2012, and Aliona Moon in 2013, who all achieved the 5th place overblown female ballad position with the jury votes. And I can see Ruth Lorenzo following up those three if she's on form, and a high placing with the juries is a start. Televoters have shown less enthusiasm for these entries. We'll have to see if Ruth's star power can change that, and if so, again, I think it can match Pastora Soler maybe a little bit better, but there are those ifs around.
So, Daniel, is 5th place reserved for an overblown female ballad?
It would appear so, wouldn't it? They do love this kind of thing. There's something about a female kind of sort of going for it with her vocals that they seem to love.
Absolutely. Tobias, ¿te gusta la canción española?
Ja, me gusta. I think this is a lovely little song, actually. I had no idea who Ruth Lorenzo was in the past, and I haven't liked many Spanish entries in the last 5-6 years or so, but I think this is a lovely little song. I think it's very melodic. It sort of reminds me of Beyonce's Halo, actually, and but it all depends, as you said, that if she managed to keep her voice down a bit. It's such a fine line between singing and shouting, and if she crosses that line, then all hope is lost. But if she managed to keep her vocals together, her vocal cords under control, then I think this could score surprisingly well. I also think it will get a lot of votes from the juries, and I think that there's some kind of likability around this woman. I think that she will break through to quite a few people. I don't think she will do a lot better than 10th place, but I think that she has a fair chance of breaking into top 10, the lower regions of it, on a good day.
And on a bad day?
On a bad day, she will scream it to bits, and she will end up like Spain usually does, like 21st or something.
Thank you for that, Tobias. Now we move on to the United Kingdom. In choosing this year's UK entry, the BBC have gone back to the drawing board. No more 75-year-olds, no more 61-year-olds. They tried to think about British things which were popular in Europe. Sadly, Benedict Cumberbatch was unavailable, so instead they chose someone whose name sounds like a character from Downton Abbey. Here's 27-year-old Lady Molly Smitten-Downs, who will perform Children of the Universe. Here she is.
We shine like diamonds with love in our hearts. They said it's the end, but I have a feeling it might just be the start. As I am awakened, with fire in my bones, standing beside you, I have the feeling that I'll never walk alone. We're children of the universe, children of the universe, children of the universe, don't you know? They're dancing at the edge of time, and it's ours to own. 'Cause we are children of the universe.
Daniel, are you a child of Molly's universe?
Not particularly, in the sense that on a personal level, the song doesn't do that much for me, but I do recognise that it ticks a lot of boxes in the context of the competition. What they've done is they've got a credible artist, and anyone who heard Molly at the London Eurovision party sing 2 other songs from her new album would find that. They've got a credible artist, and they've got her to write something that's actually very Eurovision-y. It reminds me of it's a mixture of Love, Shine a Light and Francis Raffel's 1994 entry. It's a bit stop-start for me. It doesn't quite know what it is, but it does know that it's in the Eurovision Song Contest, and for that reason, whilst I can't see it quite winning, I can see it doing very well.
Tobias, would you agree with Daniel?
I can see this one doing well as well. For me, the problem with this is a little bit like flashback to Italy. I think the hook, this power to the people hook, is so effective. It's sort of every time it starts with that, I go like, oh yes, this is going to rock. This is going to be wonderful. And then the chorus doesn't quite live up to that. She sings it very, very well, but there isn't a lot to remember afterwards. I think the hook is great, the verse builds up very nicely, and then the chorus is, again, a little bit of a letdown, but it easily has the potential of being the best placed UK entry since the world went in colour, basically. It's I think it has also, just like Spain, on a good day, it could do top 10, it could possibly even get into top 5 with a really, really good performance. And then I mean vocal performance and sort of stage appearance. Everything comes together. As you said, it ticks a lot of boxes. And I think ridiculously enough that people have been missing good, solid UK entries, something that would be worth voting for. And she's very likable. I think that people would sort of automatically want to vote for a good UK entry, and well, this could be good enough.
I'm not generally a kind of patriotic defender of my country, but I have to say, Tobias, top 5 since the world went in colour. Jade Ewan, thank you. Jessica Garlick, I think she was 3rd. That was 2002, and that's one more top 5 entry than your adopted country has ever had.
Yes, but we didn't produce the Beatles.
Okay, then.
People expect less from us, to put it like that.
Absolutely. Clearly, anybody who expects less from Finland hasn't heard Ultra Bra or Ding or whatever.
And most people haven't.
Sadly not. We're the only cultured people on this podcast, Tobias. Clearly.
I love Ultra Bra.
I find it suits women. Yes, absolutely.
Gives me a lift every time.
Before we move on to the sexist part of the podcast, I would actually agree with Tobias. It was a promising start, but the chorus, again, I just found bland. And yes, I mean, the BBC, for me, is to be congratulated. They've been, in recent years, not in tune with Eurovision taste, i.e. sending pensioners for a start. But this time, interesting verses, bland chorus. It fits right in with this year's contest. So, well done, BBC. Gav, what do you think?
Well, I think it's nice to be positive about the UK's entry for once. And it's not as if it's a small step towards 10th place. It's a giant step towards potentially winning or at least placing. As Tobias mentioned, the power to the people hook. It's particularly relevant right now when I think many countries will latch onto that message. The song itself has a really nice warm sound too, especially when the orchestral elements kick in. Now, I would have liked to see some of that on stage, but I don't think that's going to happen, which is a shame. But I think the music quality will help make the UK entry stand out, especially to the juries. It's a really nicely balanced, well-arranged track. Another refreshing point is that Molly is a cracking singer, so hopefully we can watch this year's jury rehearsal with some confidence and not feeling on edge at every single high note. It's a solid entry, it's doing well in the polls, make of them what you will, but I do think the UK are strong top 5 contenders and definite contenders for the win.
Strong words there, might just win. First time since 1997, obviously that would be. But there you go. And we move from a country which last won in 1997 to a country which last won in 2013. It's the last song we'll discuss in our podcast this year. It's Denmark. Now, we don't know yet how Denmark will stage this year's contest. I really hope that the presenters will not speak in rhyming couplets as they did in 2001. But if there's one thing they're good at, it's clearly fixing the draw. In 2001, they sang last. This year, they've drawn 23rd. Coincidence? Well, you do the maths. Anyway, maybe they'd like to host the 60th birthday of Eurovision. So the pressure is on Basim with his cliché love song.
Another cliche, like Katy Perry. She could kiss a lucky girl, taste like cherry. Yeah, she could rock your world. Cloud 7, I never felt like this before. She took me closer to heaven. OMG, let's go. Yeah, boom, 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 when she walk the room, even girls, they whistle. Yeah, I know we could be together. You're a special girl. Yeah. Scuba-dooba-dap-dap-dee-dee-die, scuba-dooba-dap-dap-dee-dee-die. I love you. Another cliche, baby. Scuba-dooba-dap-dap-dee-dee-die. Baby, I'ma do whatever you like. I love you. Another cliche, baby. Oh.
Yeah, cliche or a love song?
Well, the main debate on ESCtips has been whether Denmark can win 2 years on the bounce. I struggled with Basim's song when it was first released as a snippet in the Danish national final. I think mostly that was down to the swearing, and that distracted me somewhat. But having watched the live final, I have to admit Denmark have another very strong package. The staging was amazing. Basim fits into the Gianluca Bezzina mould, a young, non-threatening, smiley lad having fun with his friends. Cliché love song is cheesy, but it's very infectious and extremely radio-friendly. The Bruno Mars comparisons are justified too, and Bruno Mars has reached number 1 in many of the participating Eurovision nations. Like last year, the stage was Gould, which screams winner. The flag release might have been a tad over the top, but I can see this being a great tactic to use with the home crowd. Last year, the Danes invaded Malmö, but I don't see the same level of support coming from Sweden this year. I think it's going to be full-on Danes in that arena, and I think the roar for this song is going to be immense. And being positioned at number 23, it poses such a strong threat.
Daniel, Gavin likes a nice Danish package. Do you?
Yeah, this is a great slice of Danish, isn't it? It's all about the staging and the performance we saw at the Danish final, the atmosphere created, the movement on stage, the phaser effect on Basim's vocals, and to have this party atmosphere created at number 23 in the running order is absolutely ideal. I mean, people have flagged up two concerns for it. One, they worry about how the juries are going to react to the kind of lyrical goofiness of it. And secondly, whether it will play as well in every part of Europe, i.e. Eastern Europe as well as West. I have to say, I'm less worried about the juries. I think, if a good pure pop package has come along like Jedward and Lipstick, then they're perfectly happy to play along and to enjoy that. And if it's as professional as it looked in the national final, I don't think they'll have a problem scoring it reasonably well. I suppose I have a little more of a worry about how the East are going to react to a kind of slightly American-sounding song. But like Gav, I have this in my top four at the moment.
Tobias, what's your take on Denmark's entry?
Oh dear, I did this to Romania. Here we go again. Okay. Honestly, I don't like a single thing about this entry. I think it's stupid. I think it's sexist. I think it's what should I say? It's so annoyingly heterosexual in such a stupid way that I just can't focus. And I think he's pretty average. I think the chorus is nagging, and it wouldn't surprise me if it made top 5, but I'm hoping it won't. I think this is a cheap rip-off, and I wouldn't compare it to anything good. I mean, Malta last year, that was charming. This, for me, is just a calculated piece of, whatever people like at the moment, and name drop Katy Perry and see if people vote for it. I'm allergic to this. I think this is a really, really weak effort, and I'm sure that people will vote for it, just like for Romania. And yeah, I rest my case.
Just to annoy you,
just to annoy me. But but that, since I react so strongly against it, and I've seen other people online who basically share my point of view here, I think that maybe the people who like it tend to overrate it. I think that it might not hit home quite as well with people as everyone thinks. Maybe it's aiming more for the 6-7 pointers rather than the 10-12 pointers in televoting, but it will do annoyingly well anyway, as Denmark tends to do. So yeah, not my cup of tea, but probably a top 5 contender, although I would wish it wasn't.
Yes, I mean, last time they hosted, Denmark actually came second, which I'm sure caused several heart attacks from the Denmark's radio personnel. So you're praying that it's not a repeat, or indeed one better.
Yeah, definitely. I think, seriously, I thought last year that Only Teardrops wasn't the winner we needed. I would have wanted something that was less typical for Eurovision and something more hit-friendly that could have translated more nicely into a commercial pop success. And I think that if Denmark would win 2 years in a row, it would be a little bit like when Ireland won in the 90s. I don't see this as a huge radio hit in Europe, actually. It sounds a little bit like a radio hit that was co-written to turn into a Eurovision song in a sort of not too commercial kind of way. So yeah, I'm hoping for this not to win. I live with the second place, but I hope it won't win.
I've got really little to add. You've said it all better than I could. All I put down is it's a cliched boy band pop song. Does it become better for his admitting it's cliched? I'm not sure. He's trying to be clever, trying to get some extra clever points, but I'd preferred it if halfway through it had turned into a thrash metal song. Then you could get away with the song, with the title Cliched Love Song. Anyway, we've now reviewed all 37 of these songs between us. Now it's time for the round called Name Your Top 5 Challengers. This year it's difficult. I will go first. Well, to be honest, I don't have a top 5. Obviously, people who've been listening to previous podcasts will expect me to say Latvia, Latvia, Latvia all the way. However, I have to bear in mind the fact that a lot of televoters and a lot of jurors could well be cloth-eared muppets, which often happens. So I have to have a reserve winner. And then as the site's resident historian, I go back to history. I mean, I could go back to presidents. For example, we've had Sweden and Denmark as hosts, which happened in 2000 2001. So after that, the next winner was Estonia, but I don't think it's Estonia's year. However, this reminds me a bit of 2011, when, despite what any bookies said, there's no clear favourites from Eurovision pickers, really. Nobody's entirely sure. And what happened in 2011? Azerbaijan won. And I'm actually thinking that that could be a complete possibility, because I think that in the last couple of weeks, a lot of countries, particularly for some reason, those with small populations, will come through to the homegrown charms of this Azeri song, which they brought off Swedish songwriters. So that's my tip as winner. As for the other 5, I don't know. I don't care. I can't be arsed. Gav, what's your take?
Well, I agree with you. It's a very difficult year to pick a winner or even a solid top 5. But I was making notes while you were talking, and the countries that I listed were Armenia, Denmark, UK, Ukraine. But then I'm stuck for my 5th place, so I guess the case you made for Azerbaijan kind of slots them into it. However, I'm still hopeful, having seen the stage and having heard some gossip regarding Romania, that they might just shock. I'm just reluctant to suggest that an upbeat dance song will make the top 5. But anyway, those are kind of my 5/6.
Okay, so, Gav, give me your winner.
Oh my God, I don't remember that being in the script. Ooh.
No, I know, but it now is, because I'm presenter. Give me a winner. I know. This is a year when not many people can be sure. I know there's no real standout song, but if I held a shotgun to your head and said, "Give me a winner," what would you say?
Okay, if you say so, I'm going to be patriotic and I'm going to say United Kingdom wins.
Okay, ooh, very good. Daniel, what about you? Your top 5 first.
Okay, so I have a top 4 list, and then I had a couple of them vying for the 5th place. So my top 4 is Armenia, Ukraine, Denmark, and Hungary, and I've whittled it down to just 2 to join those 4, and those 2 are the UK and Azerbaijan. So there you go, you get 6 for the price of 5.
Absolutely. And the winner?
And the winner, Armenia or Ukraine. How about that?
So, Yerevan or Kiev. Tobias, what about you?
Well, I thought this would be easy, to just find 5, but I found 4, and then I found myself saying earlier in this podcast that Italy won't make top 5, so I can't say that they will now, so that one goes out. And then there's a lot of songs that I would like to be in the top 5 that I don't really think will be there, like Hungary, for instance. I'd love it if Hungary made top 5, but I don't. I think they will be, close but not in the top 5. So my 5 countries would be Armenia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, UK, and Austria. Ooh. And my winner is Austria. Everything is so open this year. Just like you said, it's like Düsseldorf all over. And it means that anything that can grab the attention of the televoters and combine that with vocal, a good vocal performance is a possible winner, especially if given a good draw in the final. That's also the thing. I mean, if Armenia is drawn in the beginning of the final and given the number 3 slot, then they're out. They're not going to be top 5 in that case. So we don't know anything. And given that Austria gets a good slot close to the end, everyone will remember the bearded lady. He sings wonderfully, and that's my favorite song this year. So I'm just going to say that Austria is going to win through and be the surprise winner this year.
I mean, I was going to say my only sure prediction is that whichever song wins Eurovision, I will hate, but I pretty much like Austria. So I'm with you, Tobias. Obviously, I'm praying to the god of Eurovision every day for a Latvian victory. But after that, then yes, I think Austria will definitely be right up there. Anyway, that's it from us this year. It's been great fun bringing you these shows, and we will be back next year to cover Melody Festivalen and Eurovision. But our coverage of Eurovision 2014 does not stop there. Gav will be travelling to Denmark this Sunday to watch and report on all of the rehearsals. As ever, we'll have our daily live blog and chat room open to all, so please feel free to drop in and share your views on ESCtips.com. Gav will also be tweeting during rehearsals, so if you want to read live reaction, make sure you follow the official Twitter account, which is, Gav?
It's at ESCtips_Gavster.
Daniel will also be in Denmark, along with Rob from our second podcast, so make sure you follow their Twitter account too. Daniel, what's your Twitter account?
It's just at Sofabet.
At Sofabet, and I believe that Rob's is at Ferris Day Off, for some reason only known to himself, but we'll publish them below this recording. Okay, finally, Daniel, thank you so much for making the time and giving your expert opinion.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Andy.
And Tobias, thank you so much as well.
You're most welcome, and may the best song win, which is Austria.
And Gav, thanks so much for this and the work you're going to be putting in producing it and cutting out all of my mistakes.
That's all part of the service, and thank you for hosting, Andy.
No problem. We hope you all have a great Eurovision. We'll be back in the new year to discuss contenders for the 2015 Eurovision Song Contest, which will take place in Riga. So, from me, Andy Redfern, from Gavin Lambert, from Daniel Gould, and from Tobias Larsson, have a very Merry Christmas. Goodbye.